Hello, today's lesson is going to be about angles. The first type of angle we're going to learn about are complementary angles. These are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. There's a couple ways we can see them. One is if we have two lines that are perpendicular, they cross at 90 degrees. And so if I cut that angle with another angle, say this angle is 20 and this angle is 70, these are complementary angles. However, complementary angles don't always have to be right next to each other. We could have this angle and say this angle, and say this is 50 degrees and this one is 40 degrees. And because these two add up to 90, we would say they are complementary, just like these two add up to 90. Another way we can ask questions about this is we'll say something like, what is the complement of the angle whose measure is 80 degrees? What plus 80 is 90? That answer would be 10 degrees. Now, supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. Just like complementary angles, they can be drawn on a line. Here, this is 180 degrees because it's halfway around a circle. So if I cut that with any angle, we could say maybe this is 30 degrees and this is 150. Since those add up to 180, then they're supplementary angles. Again, supplementary angles do not always have to be next to each other. We could say this is 25, and then we could have another angle over here that would look like that. We could say this is 155, and these two are supplementary angles because they add up to 180. So they don't have to be touching to be supplementary. We could ask a question like this: what is the supplement of an angle whose measure is 120 degrees? So 180 minus 120 would be 60 degrees. Now we're going to learn about vertical angles. Vertical angles are angles that are created when two lines intersect. So if we could say this is angle 1 and this is angle 2. These two are vertical angles. However, I could switch them to be like this, and we would call these two angles to be vertical angles. Now there's something that we know about these angles. If two angles are vertical angles, then we know that they are congruent. A way that we can show congruence is we draw a little line like this and draw a line through it. There's actually a couple ways we can write this. Another thing that people do is sometimes they'll draw a couple lines like this. Now you know if there's two markings here, you have to match it up with two markings here. You could have three markings here, match up with three markings there. So you have to pay attention to how exactly they're labeled. Now if two angles are a linear pair of angles, then they are supplementary. So to show you what a linear pair is, if we draw this out, here angle 3 and angle 4 are a linear pair. Now these two angles, angle 3 plus angle 4, so they're supplementary, so those will add up to be 180 degrees. Now, the difference between a linear pair and supplementary, a lot of people think that they mean the same thing. However, a linear pair cannot be separated. If I had a angle that is, say, 40 and another one over here that's 140, this is not a linear pair. But these are supplementary, where these angles 3 and 4 are both a linear pair and supplementary. All right, now we're going to find some values. So if this is 165, we know x is a vertical angle, so that has to be 165. To find the angle y, we have to do 180 minus 165, and that's going to leave us with 15. So I know angle y is 15. Now I don't have it in here, but I could also find this angle over here, because that would also be 15. So uh, remember, vertical angles are always equal, linear pair are supplementary. Now this one's a little trickier. I want you to find x, y, z, and w. If you're doing this at home, pause the video, try this on your own, and start it back up to see the answer. All right. This angle here is going to be vertical with angle z, so z would have to be 52 degrees. Angle 85 will be congruent with this angle y, so this will be 85 degrees. X will make 3 little dashes, will be congruent with w. However, we don't know either of those angles, so we have to somehow figure out what those are. Well, we know 52 plus 85 is going to be 137. So if this whole thing is 137, we know if we continue it all the way down here, that's halfway around a circle. So that's 180 degrees. So I just have to take 180 minus 137, and that's going to be 43 degrees. So if this side is 43 degrees, W also has to be 43 degrees. All right, let's keep moving. What is the value of x? Again, if you're at home, pause the video and see if you can do this one on your own. 6x minus 19 is equal to 101. Add 19 to both sides, so 6x is equal to 120. Divide by 6, and x will equal 20. Now the value of x is 20. So if we want to check to see if it's right, we do 6 times 20, which is 120, minus 19, and that's 101, which we know these two have to be congruent. So that's true. Now here we want to find the value of x. Again, pause the video and see if you can do this one on your own. We know these two angles are vertical and they must be equal. So 2x plus 104 is going to equal 4x plus 54. I would start by subtracting 54 on both sides, leaving 2x plus 50 is equal to 4x. Now if we subtract 2x on both sides, we're going to have 50 equals 2x. Divide by 2, and x equals 25. Now keep in mind, the angle doesn't equal 25. Some people will get done with this problem and they'll be mad and they're like, that angle doesn't look like it's 25. And they're right. That's not a 25-degree angle. If we want to find the angle, we have to take 2 times 25, which is 50. 50 plus 104 is 154. Now that angle does look like it's about 154. And we can try it again on the bottom. 4 times 25 is 100. 100 plus 54 is 154. And now we know that it's correct because we know those angles are congruent. Now in this situation, these two angles are not congruent. However, they are a linear pair, so they're supplementary. So 2x minus 16 plus 2x plus 104 is going to equal 180 degrees. Now if I simplify this left side, 2x plus 2x is 4x. 104 minus 16 is going to be, I think it's 88. Now I'm going to subtract 88 from both sides, leaving 4x is equal to 92. Now if I divide both sides by 4, x will equal 23. Again, 23 is not either of these angles. In order to find these angles, we do 2 times 23, which is 46. 46 minus 16 is 30. Now, if this is 30, this one better be 150 because they should be supplementary. So let's plug it in. 2 times 23 is 46. 46 plus 104 is 150. Wonderful. So we know that one works out. Now, you guys can try this one on your own. Is this the same one up here? We already did this one. We can skip this one. All right. Parallel lines are lines that are in the same plane that do not intersect. So we can call this one M, this one N, and we'll say these are parallel lines. On a diagram, we'll show it by making an arrow on the line. We can make this in notation by saying M is parallel to N, where this thing right here means is parallel to. Ooh, that 2 kind of got away from me there. Is parallel to. Now, when we do this, when we cut 2 parallel lines by a transversal, so this line coming through is what we call a transversal. Now, it's going to create 8 angles. Now look at these 8 angles. We learned A and D are vertical, A and B are linear pair. So we know that there's a lot of linear pairs and vertical angles here. Now there's other relationships that we should look for also. Now if we take a look, let's do this. If I drew these angles in, if I took the angles down here and moved them down here, hopefully you notice that it's the same set of angles. These angles and these angles are exactly the same. So we'll say that they correspond to each other. So there's these type of angles called corresponding angles. They're angles like A, we say corresponds with E. Now we can say B is going to correspond with F, C is going to correspond with G, and D is going to correspond with H. Now we have some angles on the inside of the parallel lines, which we call the interior. Interior is not just a math word, it's a word that's used in a lot of places, and it means the inside. So here, the interior angles mean the inside of those parallel lines. Now the exterior are going to be the angles up here and the angles down here. Now if you see a term that says alternate interior angles, alternate means it goes from one side of the line to the other. So C and F are going to be alternate interiors, along with D and E. Alternate exterior angles are going to be like A and H, and B and G. Now, I have a thing here for vertical angles, but hopefully you know A and D, B and C, E and H, and F and G are vertical angles. Now, all of these angles, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, and alternate exterior angles, these are all congruent, meaning they're the same size or same degree measure. So they're all congruent. So if you know angle A is, say, 70, you know its corresponding angle is going to be 70. You know its alternate interior angle is going to be 70. D corresponds with this one down here. Now you know linear pairs. These two are a supplementary. So this would be 130, and its vertical will be congruent. Alternate exterior will be congruent, and then corresponding will be congruent. So just knowing one angle will give us the other 7 angles that are given between parallel lines and a transversal. Now we have a conjecture that says if two lines are cut by a transversal to form two pairs of congruent corresponding angles, corresponding alternate interior angles, and corresponding alternate exterior angles, then the lines are parallel. Now what this means is these aren't exactly the lines I was looking for, but we can deal with it. If they're cut by this transversal, and if this is 110 and this is 110, then we know that these lines are parallel. However, if this is 110 and this is 112, then these lines will be a little skew or not parallel. So you have to pay attention, and this conjecture can help us show if lines are ever parallel. All right, so here's a diagram. I want you to take a second, pause the video, and see if you can fill in the rest of these values. Now, if this is 72, this angle is corresponding. This angle is alternate exterior with the original 72, and this angle here is a vertical angle. Now, if you subtract from 180, this would be 108, which gives this vertical angle 108. This one corresponds in the upper right with 108, and these two are vertical for another 108. All right, so if we look at this one, angles 2 and 7. What type of angles do you think those are? Hopefully you're screaming at the screen. Alternate exterior. Wonderful. Angles 5 and 7. These two down here. What type of angles are those? Hopefully you know those are called a linear pair. Angles 3 and 7. Those angles are corresponding angles because they're in the same spot, both on the top and bottom. Angles 3 and 6. Those are in the insides and they alternate from one side to the other, so that's alternate interior. All right, your homework is out of the book. Good luck.